So Unity basically came out with these insane kind of fees for all these developers based on the number of downloads your game would have. And there are different thresholds depending on the tier of Unity that you had bought into as a developer. There were all kinds of issues that Unity didn't think through. Then they had to backtrack on it because developers were like, what about this? 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 So it's not a good look. There are a lot of developers like Slay the Spire developers are like well into development of their next game, and it's on the Unity engine, and they've basically said if Unity doesn't backtrack, we will be moving over to a brand new engine. Doesn't matter how long it takes us to get the game made. This is not a company we want to be dealing with moving forward in any capacity if they stick to the changes they're making. There have been a lot of other developers that have come out and said the same thing. Basically, the developers of Massive Monster, I think the developers of Cult of the Lamb have basically come out and said, yo, as of 1 January 2024, Cult of the Lamb will no longer be available. So because of Unity, we're going to delete the game entirely. So if you want to own it, you should buy it now because we're going to delete the game. Because as of 1 January 2024, that's when these changes would take effect. And they're like, we're not dealing with this. We're just going to delete the game. Get wrecked. What they would probably do. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Vault. Yep. Yeah, it's actually insane. There's the thing that feels bad. This is what's really terrible about it. So if Unity does not backtrack off of what they've done here, it's yeah. Well, so if you already own it, you'll always own it. But what they're saying is that if you want to buy it, you need to buy it now, because after 1 January, if Unity doesn't change their stance on these changes that they're trying to incorporate starting at the beginning of the next year, they're going to make the game no longer available. Basically. Yeah. So if you own it, you own it. They can't take that away from you. You know what I mean? They can't do that. But, you know, this is... they're not the only. I'm just giving you examples. There are a lot of other devs that are in the same boat here as like these devs. Yeah, all platforms, Davey. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, if you own those games or whatever, then you own them. It doesn't matter. You can always download those games if you own them. It's the same thing as like any game. There'll be a lot of games that will end up losing licensing, like. You know, for certain things. There'll be games that get licensing for things like traditional horror stuff. So like, for example, like Friday the 13th stuff. There'll be games that get made with the Friday the 13th licensing, but then they won't be able to renew it for some reason. And they'll come out and basically let everybody know, like, hey, if you want our game, you should get it now because we're losing the licensing. And the game's going to go away. It won't be available any longer. It happened not too long ago to like what it was like Friday the 13th puzzle something game. You know what I mean? But as long as you own it, they can never take that away from you. Even if it's digital. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what platform it's on either. As long as you own it, it's part of your library, then they can't take that away from you. But if they remove the game from being able to be purchased or added to your library, and you haven't done that before that time period, then you can no longer get it, right? That's the difference. Quite possibly, Vault. Quite possibly. Yeah. It's basically, so it's really scummy. I would just, I'll TLDR this for you guys the best I can. There's a lot that goes into it. We've hashed it out over about the past 3 to 4 days. Basically, what Unity has done has come out and they've gone, hey, guess what? we are making changes to anybody, any developer that has ever made a game that is still being pushed out as a purchasable game that was built on our engine. You are going to be charged basically per installation. Now, just think about that for a second, right? Per installation. So, taking that into not purchase, per installation. So that's kind of what it's been in the past, was like you bought into Unity's engine as like a subscription. You bought like a month's worth of subscription to use their engine, build your game, and then you might have had to, I don't know all the contract stuff behind it, but basically what they've done, and here's the thing, there are a lot of developers out there, right, that have built Unity games for charity. They don't make any money off the game at all for purchases. It's free, like free to download. They might make they make most of their money off of like maybe ad space and stuff like that just for charity. Yeah. But the money they make is nothing compared to what they would be charged for the amount of installs. It was like, we saw a couple of examples where it would be like, basically, for a certain number of installs for a charity type game, these companies would be getting charged like $500,000, where they would normally only be making somewhere around $150K to $200K for charity, and then they'd be in the hole all that rest of that money to Unity. You know what I mean? And it's things like that. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration here. Charity type games that are like free to play, any other free to play kind of game that just gets downloaded on the constant. Anybody that has any kind of agenda against a certain kind of developer or company that wants to like start up some VMware, like virtual machines, just a ton of virtual machines, run a script to where all of them just, I mean, because dude, if you guys don't know what virtual machine platforms are, it's basically just a bunch of nested computer operating systems that are like kind of localized inside a machine, like a computer, right? Well, let me get to it, Pinky. Let me get to it. I'm just kind of trying to TLDR this, dude. Give me a second. What's up, buddy? So you could basically just sit there and VMware this stuff, virtual machine, set up a script. If you wanted to, like, because there are people out there that have agendas against games. We see it all the time, right? Review bombing and stuff just for something stupid, like, you know, the main protagonist being a certain race or gender or you know, like, you know, sexual or you know, having a certain sexual preference or something. You know, I mean, stuff like that happens all the time, right? So you would see you would see people try and rack up a bunch of installs against certain developers just as a way to try and like take them down, you know? And now here's the thing. Now what Pinky's talking about is like, apparently charity games are excluded from the payments, right? Apparently. But here's the deal. What Unity is saying, and here, first and foremost, let's be real about this situation. Unity did not come out with anything that addressed any of these potential issues in the first place. Unity came out and was like, hey, these are the changes we're making, and everybody's going to get charged out their asses for every install that happens for every game that's been made on our engine, right? Then there was a bunch of backlash and criticism for all this stuff that Unity didn't have the, you know, capacity to think about in the first place and address and try to put any kind of information out there for people, you know. So all these developers were going, what about this? 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 And then Unity had to backtrack and start addressing that and going, oh, well, and here's the other thing. they're going, oh, well, we have our own proprietary system that's going to keep track of this stuff, right? It'll keep track of the counts and make sure that, people aren't, reinstalling the game on the same hardware or, or whatever. And this is all stuff that had to come out after they had initially dropped this news, where people started addressing these issues. Like, what are you talking about, dude? People are going to start, and it's still not going to account for the VMware stuff. I guarantee it. So there's still a lot of issues with this. Okay. And, I'm sorry, but Unity can sit there and say that, they've got all these precautions in place to make sure that what they're doing isn't going to count for like charity games, and they'll ensure that basically it would be like reinstall bombing won't happen and stuff like that. But dude, it's going to. And here's what I think people need to understand. When something like this happens, do you really think that Unity is going to be super concerned with trying to help any of these businesses have to pay less money to them? No way. So if a company is even maybe running a charity game, but they're being charged outside of what they're supposed to be charged, or whatever, they're not supposed to be charged, but they are getting charged. Do you think Unity's going to be all over it? Like, oh, let me take care of that real quick for you. You know what I mean? No, probably not. And especially these corporations where, these businesses that are trying to prove that they're getting install bombed and stuff like that from, certain big VM farms or whatever. and they're trying to prove it. How easy do you think that's going to be to prove that to somebody like Unity? Because Unity's not going to be doing anything to help you prove that you don't have to pay them more money, right? You got to be realistic about this situation. So honestly, I think what's happened here is that Unity has shown their true colors. Even if they backtrack off of this, I think a lot of developers have seen what Unity is about now. And even if it doesn't happen right now, they're going to try to push for this in the future. And I think most developers are going to move away from Unity. I don't think they are going to survive this very well. I think most devs are done. Even like Devolver came out and was like, yo, any developers that are looking to have us publish games, you should take a real critical look at what engine you're running your game on. Because they don't want to have anything to do with Unity now. Stuff like that. Nobody wants to have anything to do with them. You know what I mean? So yeah, they have backtracked. They have tried to be very reactive in this situation to addressing all these issues that all the developers have come out with and gone, what about this? 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 But it's not assuaging the fears that people have about what Unity's doing here. And rightfully so. I'm right there with them. I don't think that it should either. It's scary. And it should be scary. This is the thing that sucks really bad too, though. So there are a lot of developers out there that are like, in some form or fashion of, varying degrees of project development right now, of game development using Unity's engine. And they have a choice to make. Do they just stay in bed with, Unity and just hope that they can survive what Unity's doing moving forward? Or do they bite the bullet, break the game down, build on another engine, and try to soak up the amount of time that would take to rebuild it? it's a tough decision, and it sucks for them. And a lot of them are indie devs too. And it's really, really terrible. It sucks. It's a tough thing to hear. This is basically what's happened, and it sucks. It's terrible to hear, but and again, I think this is the thing. Even if Unity pulls back, and goes, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, I still think developers are going to move away from Unity. I think it's too late. I think most developers have seen what Unity is about now, and they're not going to want to have anything to do with it. Personal opinion, I think that's what's going to happen. It's a bad look, dude.